Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the United States of America. And of course, good morning to the world receiving our signals via the magic of the internet created by we the people, created by you, now controlled by billionaires who had nothing to do with its creation, but just living as usual off of your backs. Today, we're going to go into some subjects. We have a whole lot to cover. So I'm going to throw it to the studio because we've got to begin. I don't know how much we can get in, but we'll sure try. Studio, good morning to the geniuses, Los Genios el Señor, Howard Reynolds and Jacques Van Beba.
Yeah, those heinous geniuses are here.
Yes, we're hanging.
Yeah, Jack has a full, almost a half a page of wisdom here. And I'm talking Mike. There we go. Now you can hear me. I was just looking at an article that Stephen Miller, who was formerly with America First Legal, the America First Legal has now decided to file a lawsuit against John Roberts, the Supreme Court Justice.
Wow. Didn't see that one.
Yeah, it's there. I did a research on it this weekend and went, what are these guys doing? You're going to sue the Supreme Court? All right. There we go. So it begins. Jack, what you got, man?
Well, it's true. You know, the Supreme Court is still co-opted. It's too far conservative right now. And until we get it balanced out, we're just not going to have the representation for the people.
Well, the thing is, they're saying that the judicial system should be under the executive branch. No, I'm serious. Their argument is the judicial system should be under the executive branch because then, we can get some things done. Yeah, okay.
They forgot to read the Constitution. Separation of powers, 3 distinct branches of government, right? And they're going to have the nerve to say that. I mean, it is. All right. Sorry for interrupting, guys.
It seems like they've forgotten to read a lot of things, and they forgot to bring their common sense. All right, Jack, let's get to your stuff, man.
All right. Good morning, Egberto.
Good morning, Jack. Talk to me, man.
The Reagan administration is when they flipped the USA to a neoliberal economic model that transfers wealth from the bottom to the top. They called it trickle-down economics, but they only called it that to sell it to the people. This economic model has made the industrial and military oligarchs so wealthy that they are now working towards world domination and authoritarian rule. So yes, America needs to re-regulate capitalism to a state that is not so predatory towards the citizens and the rest of the world, period.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, period. And that's a great entry. And I hope to get to some of that in what I've written up here. But some news came out after I wrote the program about the tariffs. And, some people are getting excited about it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And
How do you get excited about an extra tax on you?
Thank you.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and everybody's going out. I'm seeing lots of new cars out there. Everybody's going out and buying to beat the tariffs. And maybe that was the play to get people to spend money.
Well, yeah, and to solve the problem of giving the money back to the wealthy folks. But check this out. I want everybody to understand this. The tariffs, what occurred is this. We had an average tariff with other countries of under 3%. Okay. If you look at it in the aggregate, it's under 3% tariffs across the board, etc. Donald Trump jacked it up in some parts with Mexico and Canada to 25% on certain issues. Of course, if you're rich enough to own a car company, etc., you can make some deals with the president, which many of them did. And over time, they just keep going back to the well to get breaks. But the average person doesn't have the power to go to the president and say, hey, I need to negotiate a side order so that the stuff I'm bringing in from China, the stuff I'm bringing in from Mexico, the stuff I'm bringing in from Canada, the prices are different. We don't have that play for the average American citizen. Okay, so that went for Canada and Mexico to up 25%. For the rest of the world, the tariffs became 10%. So what we're seeing is, if you want to look at it at the aggregate, the taxes on products coming into the United States on the American people has gone from about 3% in the aggregate to 10%. That's over a 333% increase in the aggregate. I want everybody to understand that. So when everybody is happy that the tariffs from China, a deal that was established after I wrote the show yesterday, from 145% tariff down to 30%, okay, for 90 days while they negotiate. People say, oh, wow, big deal. Well, remember, that was from a tariff of under 3% in general, which is more than a 3,000%. Over a 3,000% increase in tariffs for the average American. So people bringing in stuff from China now, instead of paying, you're paying 1,000% more in taxes for that product that you're bringing in from China, even with this deal that reduced it from 145% to 30%. This is just simple math, folks. But it gets worse. It gets worse. You know that little shopping Amazon type thing that a lot of small businesses used from China? It's called de minimis shipping or de minimis exemption. What it meant is that if you bought a product and you spend less than $800 and less of that product, right? You got the de minimis exception. That means you got to bring that product in tariff-free. So thousands of businesses, hundreds of thousands, millions of businesses got established. People working out of their homes, people working out of little shops or whatever. They would bring in cups and glass bottles and threads and these things, and they would add value to that and establish their businesses. They weren't paying tariffs on these products. So whereas big companies got very huge discounts when they brought in containers upon containers from China, these small businesses got the opportunity to compete because while they didn't have the volume of scales, they could actually bring in using the de minimis exceptions for people buying products at under $800, which means if you brought in, you could bring in, I don't know, maybe 1,000 cups that was under $800, and therefore you didn't pay a tariff. You could add value to that cup, sell it in Walmart, sell it anywhere. So that gave you entry into business, right? That de minimis tariff, I didn't see anything within the deal that they made with China to restore that de minimis tariff. I mean, that de minimis exemption, what that means is that everybody gets that 30% increase in their costs, including the mom and pop store that doesn't have the power to go to the president and say, could you please exempt bikes? Could you please exempt this? Could you please exempt that? So as usual, the people who get screwed in this entire tariff deal are all the standard small businesses. Americans all pay that tariff. So folks, I need you to understand this. Donald Trump went ahead and created some extraordinarily high tariffs so that to the psyche of the non-thinking person, what then happens is that, wait a minute, I don't have to pay 145% tariff. I'm going to pay 30% now. Remember what that means, though. With the de minimis exemption gone, with all these other things gone, Donald Trump collects a huge amount of taxes to pay for the tax cut for the wealthy, because all that money that poor America, that middle class America pays goes into the coffers of the United States. It's not China who pays the tariffs. It's all of us who pays that tariff with the increased cost, with the increased price. So even if, let's say, the mom and pop store eats some of the tariff, your prices goes up, the business cost of mom and pop stores goes up. We all pay for that big tax cut that Donald Trump wants to give to the wealthy. If we sit back and understand the con against all middle class and poor Americans, we will prevent our Congress people from effecting not only the tariffs, because remember, it's not Donald Trump who really has the right to impose tariffs. It's the Congress. Donald Trump has the right to impose tariffs right now because he declared some sort of an emergency. But ultimately speaking, Congress has the right to determine what tariffs are going to be, if they're going to be tariffs, if they will reinstitute the de minimis exemption and all of that. That is the purview, the prerogative of Congress if they decided to hold up their constitutional duty. That is what you, the average American, has the ability to impose on your Congress, to tell them that you are not willing to pay for the tax cuts of the Trump administration for the wealthy by you paying the bill, by giving your hard-earned dollars to a whole bunch of wealthy people who already are building their wealth on your back. Folks, it's imperative. It is imperative that we engage. It is imperative that you learn that you have the ability to engage. Don't look at the news this morning and think there was some savings for you. There was none. At 145% tariff, trade between the United States and China ceased. It stopped. At 30%, it will continue, but it will be inflationary. Let's go to Tag and then I'll continue. But there's a lot I got to cover, but Tag called in early before I was taking calls. So Tag, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir.
Talk to me, brother.
You know, I don't know if anybody's heard, but we keep getting told about how bad inflation was in 2022, right? Mm-hmm. Under Biden.
Yes.
That was 9%.
At its high for a few months. Yeah. At its high for a few months.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was some calamity that happened. But go to the hardware store right now and see what the hardware stores are doing. Everything in there, or majority of the products, so shelves are filled with stuff from China. The hardware stores, the corporations, are going through and repricing everything to indicate or to reflect what the price of the tariff will be. So even though they may have gotten that product on the shelf a year ago, it's got the new tariff price on it right now. And like 60 Minutes said, a lot of most of the stuff that's being tariffed is just sitting on the docks, waiting to see what's happening with the tariffs. A lot of that stuff may not even have a tariff on it if Trump settles with China and the rates come back down to 10% or something. And so
wait, hold on. Let's be accurate here, Tag. I don't want Americans to feel like 10%. When you said it comes back down to 10%, it was never 10%. It was way under 10%. So 10% is a huge tax increase, and everybody needs to understand that. Continue, my brother.
But it's not 145%.
Right, but you say, but wait. Hold on, Tag. It's important. This is important, and I want our audience to get the message. look at what you just said. At least it's not 145%. At 145%, business imports stopped. At 10%, by the way, it's 30% now, but even at 10%, remember that's a 333% increase. So we don't want to give the impression, well, wow, we got saved. It's 10%. Even that is an evil thing. But continue, brother.
Well, let's not overlook the fact that corporations right now are changing the prices on the shelves to reflect what tariffs are going to cost. So they're raising the prices, our prices right now on the shelves, especially in the hardware stores, up to what the tariff could be down the road sometime.
There you go.
You go up, you're going to pay 50, 100, 145% more on those products in the hardware stores right now than they were 2-3 weeks ago, even though those products weren't tariffed. And that's what really irks me. And that's not, those prices aren't going to come back down to 6 months ago prices. They'll be wherever they want to set them down the road, regardless of what the tariffs are. And that's really where we're getting hammered right now, Egberto.
You're right.
It's like the corporations will charge what they feel the tariffs are going to cost them, so that when they go to replace that product on the shelf, they've already covered that cost if there is a tariff. And if there isn't a tariff, they've just gotten a huge profit.
Amen.
So it's really, people don't understand that the 9% for a few months in 1920 or 2022, they don't understand that was a very short-lived thing. This thing with these tariffs now could go on forever. And you'll never get around paying these darn things. If you need to go to the hardware and buy something, you're going to pay for it, baby, just because even if there is never a tariff on that product, you're going to pay for it now anyway. And that's what all these maggots need to understand. That's what's happening right now with this current policy. So thanks. We'll see you.
Thank you, my brother. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And Tag is absolutely right. Welcome aboard, Joe from Los Angeles, California, in the chat, as well as Lee Beercat from Austin, Texas, Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Atascocita. Eric seemed not to understand economics, tariffs, or anything thus far. Eric, I feel for you, my brother, but that level of indoctrination is. Eric, math is not an opinion. Math is not an opinion, Eric, my dear brother. And Lady Beercat says, good news, the U.S. and China have reached an agreement. I explained that. There's no good news there at all. There's absolutely no good news there at all. In our chat, I didn't get the beginning of Substack, but welcome John A, Peter, Brandon, CJ, Junior, GN, Talmadge, Sandra, Rosalind, Christina Veltri, Armanda Grizzly, Sandy Wilrich, Carol Q, Jeff Wynn, Carol Utley, Teresa Egan, Carol Seaman, Carol Q, and many others. Thank you so kindly for being here. Didn't Kamala have a price to stop price gouging? Yes, there's a lot of things Kamala had set up, but again, there will be none of that. We have Donald Trump. All right. So remember, this tariff deal is no deal. All it does is allow a little bit of Chinese commerce just at a premium now that all of us will pay for, so that the money will be transferred to the wealthy via the huge tax cuts that we're talking about. All right. I want to talk about a very important subject, because last week, my good friend, and I really mean that, my good friend called into the program and surprised me with his support for companies like Walmart being efficient, and in so doing, maybe deserving of mom and pop businesses going out, or the loss of small cities losing their mom and pop business because Walmart comes in and offers a better, more efficient price, etc., etc., etc. And I want to express how we are taught, because the way we are taught is what allows us to have comes out to certain types of analyses. And that goes for me as well. When I learned about how capitalism worked, and when I learned about how America came to be. And when I learned about all these things, I learned it from a certain perspective that made me think, again, it was my level of indoctrination that let me think it was just standard modus operandi, standard operating procedure. There's just how things are. And that is the way we learn. So we are all indoctrinated to some effect on how things are supposed to be, and that's how they are. I want to give some examples from history that we have learned over time. We have to remember in the 19th century, something called manifest destiny. We thought that United States, out of all the countries and municipalities and kingdoms in the world, that we had divine right to come to America, United States, and move westward and do whatever it was necessary to move westward, conquer, and take. It was our manifest destiny. And we learned that in history, and we just accept it, right? We don't look at what the results are from said acceptance that somebody up top, because they wanted to take land, justified it by pulling some concept out of the air and called it manifest destiny. And that's what gave us the right to move westward, conquer, kill, maim, genocidally attack, kill. That allows us to do that. And we learned that in school in an antiseptic manner, manifest destiny, and we move forward and we had westward expansion. All right. And we could have all these things. The other concept we learned without thought, and we just accepted, the Monroe Doctrine. I'm from Central America. So I'm from Panama, Central America, a product of the Monroe Doctrine. You know, Roosevelt sent a ship off the coast of Colon. They wanted to build a canal. They wanted to build a canal in Panama, which was a part of Colombia. And Colombia said no. The Lesseps and these French were building canals. Were built great canals in Saudi Arabia, and they were going to try to build a sea level canal in Panama. They failed. America wanted that canal for commerce, tried to get a canal built. Colombia said no. All right. Manifest destiny, but Monroe Doctrine, we control the hemisphere. Puts a ship outside of Colon, got some radicals in Panama to declare independence, and hey, without further ado, I became a Panamanian citizen because what again? Monroe Doctrine allowed them to say we're building that canal and we are going to do it whether Colombia wants to or not. We control this hemisphere. We decide to accept that as standard modus operandi. All right. I want you to keep those two thoughts in your heads, that we just decide to do something and now we teach it and we accept it just for the sake of accepting it. For those that are listening, remember that I have to take a call because there's a Kathy on the thing. I want to take that, then I'm going to continue. But I want to get this subject across. Come on in, Kathy, and then I'll continue.
Hey, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Kathy. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'm glad I joined your podcast. I really love it.
Thank you.
One of the things that I wanted to share with your audience is that my late husband was from the Caribbean. He was from Trinidad and Tobago. Mm-hmm. And he came to this country as a teenager with his family. And when he grew older, he said he had such a good life here in this country that he wanted to give back to this country. So he joined the military. I'm calling from Colorado Springs, very military town here. And he gave back to this country, served 6 years in the Navy. And then when I met him, he was working for the police department in Madison, Wisconsin. The reason I'm telling this story is that immigrants are patriots for the most part. My family were immigrants, and they built this country, including people who came here not on their own accord, but it was also built on slavery. We know that. So was the Caribbean, by the way. But the point I want to make is that he passed away of COVID-19 in the fall of 2020. And after giving everything that he could to this country in the end, I feel personally, let him down and let his family down. We didn't have good leadership at the time, and I do blame the Trump administration. The massive amounts of deaths that could have been saved. He died maybe two or three months before I got the vaccine. He was 53 years old. So
Wow.
bad politics, bad policy has real life consequences to it. I want to thank you, Egberto, for your, in my opinion, what I consider true patriotism. And I really appreciate you. I'm glad I found you on this Substack. Keep doing what you're doing. And we have to remember all of these. People are frightened right now. I don't know if anyone in this community listening realizes that the immigrant community in this country is very frightened right now. And it's palpable. You can feel it even when you go out places. That people who are here working hard, love this country, want to be a part of this country, now are very afraid. So, anyway,
Kathy, I want to.
Yeah.
First of all, my most sincere condolences to you for the loss of your husband. And yes, it is true that if we had good leadership, hundreds of thousands would have been saved. Secondly, yes, foreigners that come in and build this country are patriots. I can name family members who died in the Vietnam War from Panama, who served in the military. I can tell you those who've died in the Korean War, who served the country. And I am a member of a group called Pantex. And one of the things that we're trying to promote over here is how Latin Americans from Colombia to Panama to Puerto Rico, well, Puerto Rico is a part of the U.S., to Honduras have come over to this country, fought in wars, and brought as well good food. But thank you so kindly, Kathy, for coming in.
To give you a shout out.
Great. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Kathy, yes, it is true. And the more we point this out and not let the Steve Millers of the world turn, third and fourth generation Americans into haters on new generation Americans, the better we'll be off. Dare Wolf says, thank you for your honesty and accountability. Be brave, y'all. They'll not take back our freedoms, and we will always return to our loved ones. And again, even as a naturalized citizen of the United States, when Kathy talks about immigrants being scared or fearful, I'm not scared or fearful. I do know that if I leave the country with the Steve Millers and the Donald Trumps in the world, I have to be very careful for re-entry. Okay. Thank you, Kathy, for that. Now, here is the rub that I want to bring on. Earlier, I was speaking about the Monroe Doctrine and Manifest Destiny. These are concepts that we learn in history in high school or even middle school that we don't get a grasp of how it has actually affected and damaged people here, both the indigenous folks and folks around the world. But we accept it, and we accept it as just the natural order. Same, we accept our economic system as just the natural order, right? We accepted slavery as just the necessary evil of capitalism. We accepted the destruction of slavery as just, with mechanization. Don't believe all that you read again, that the Civil War is what the benevolence of the Northerners who liberated the slaves was a great thing that happened, right? The slaves only got liberated because the country and its manifest destiny and all these other things could continue without the slave institution. The slave institution was necessary for the fast development of the United States. That's a statement of fact. And only after the cotton gin and other things that allowed the mechanization of farming, etc., was slavery not necessary going forward, and it could have been ended. And the benevolence of the North to save these folks. Now, look, let me tell my Southern brothers, a lot of folks up North would have you believe that there's something inherently more benevolent on a personal level than the Southerner. Look, I love Southern people. I love Northern people. And I mean that from the depths of my heart. But humanity is humanity is humanity. And the same prejudices that occurs in the South occurs in the North. The only difference is that the South slavery was necessary because, again, it's a growing region. It's a region that developed cotton, and it was very efficient to have slavery then. It's no longer very efficient. Now we have antiseptic slavery in the form of employees. Now, that's it. Why am I bringing all this up? I'm bringing all this up because, again, as I said, one of the calls really hit me very hard because it's a good progressive person that believe that it is okay that Walmart moves into town, and if they can give you better pricing, that it is okay for the mom and pop stores who can't afford those things to close. So when I wrote up the program today, I wrote up some bullet points that I want to cover. A change in economic system. A lot of folks are scared about whenever we talk about a change in economic system because they think we're talking communism and all these things that the plutocracy, that the capitalists have made you fear. So they're saying, why get rid of an evil system if the system that is going to be replaced by is going to be even more evil? Which isn't true. Capitalism is a man-made system. Communism is a man-made system. Socialism is a man-made system. These are fairly absolutes in different directions, but we have as man-made economic systems, we have the ability to develop systems where that they are equitable and inclusive. In other words, we have a system where capital doesn't have to be God. Our economic system abstracts the different forms of theft to justify the unearned wealth of most millionaires and billionaires. We are lied to, just like we accept manifest destiny as a matter of fact. The Monroe Doctrine as just one of those things. We have accepted our economic system as just one of those things. It is not. None of those things are one of those things. Imagine an indigenous person going to a regular high school and simply thinking, when they come out and they start to teach you history, teach you about manifest destiny, teach you about Christopher Columbus being this hero, but you knowing that Christopher Columbus in his own writings was somebody who abused children, was somebody who killed and maimed. Not somebody saying, but in his own writings. You don't learn that, but we honor him. Why then should we honor a Donald Trump as well, right? We don't understand that what we have done have actually, that Donald Trump is a representation in full force of everything, all the things that we have actually done. We were better at being better, but Donald Trump came out and said, this is who we really, really are. Now, remember that kid learning history, that indigenous kid, whose history traced tens of thousands of years on this land, coming out to think when he's learning, has to learn that these people who harmed them were great people. Imagine all the Southerner, the Black and Indigenous who have to learn that Lee and all these guys were honorable people. And you want them to sit down in a class and just accept that. You want all of us who are maimed by an economic system to sit down and accept it. All of you that are going to work every morning right now, everybody that is sitting down. And Kathy, you're absolutely right. We are, and that is what I'm trying to get at. We have to accept that the masses are who we are, not the people who professed these other things, who teach these other things. But we have made it cauterized into a Donald Trump. But anyway, so when my friend called about, the efficiency of Walmart, and it's okay if they can give the product at better efficiency, we have to understand at whose cost and what makes it more efficient. Somebody called in with a true fact and said, and reminded us that Walmart wealth is acquired by paying lower wages, and that all those people in the neighborhood who shop at Walmart at the expense of the mom and pop store, also their taxes has to be used to pay for the substandard employee compensation by giving them welfare, giving them food stamps, because that cheap product that you are getting is at the expense of employees that are making less, employees that now must be on welfare, must be on food stamps. So you're paying cheaper products, but your taxes are making up the bubble. Our capitalism, our economic system has created real estate bubbles, tech booms. These billionaires have made their monies not because they invented something of value, but because they stole something of value. Let's give an example. When it comes to things like the tech boom, when the tech boom occurred, a small group of investors would find three young, I call them the young punks, three young punks that created a website, used fancy words, and capitalized that company, turned that company into stocks. And a lot of people bought stocks in something that had really no value. So we had folks like Mark Cuban and all these other billionaires that during the tech boom, they made money off of capitalized companies that produced nothing, and they sold the companies off before the companies failed from having had products that created nothing. And boom, they became billionaires. But for every billionaire that was created, millions of Americans lost their shirt because they bought these stocks from their ignorance of not understanding how capital markets work. Legal, what all these guys did, but nonetheless legalize what I call legalize theft. And then these are the guys who now run the country. It has nothing to do with democracy. They were all sitting behind Trump. Bezos bought the Washington Post, who decided that it could no longer endorse the president that it found more competent. Why? These billionaires, again, that didn't make their monies but on other people's backs, became wealthy, and they stuck with the one who would ensure that they could keep up and did the wealth. The same thing happened with the real estate bubbles. People that shouldn't have certain loans got the loans because they know they could capitalize on all the sales of those bad loans with certain financial instruments called derivatives and default swaps, that by the time the economy crashed from all these bad loans, a lot of billionaires walked off with the money. Another form of theft, the real estate bubble, which I covered in a 5-part series called The Con, created by a friend of mine who was a Hollywood producer, creating The Con. And we had currently the billionaires that make profits from the defense industrial complex, when we give all that money to Ukraine, that money doesn't go to Ukraine. That money goes to the military industrial complex to build bombs for Ukraine to drop. So the taxpayer just gives money to the military industrial complex who build bombs for Ukraine to use and kill people, for Israel to use and kill people. Our tax dollars profits the Defense Department industrial complex to profit the other. Same in healthcare, the healthcare industrial complex. We pay more money for these drugs that we, the people, invented at universities. We pay for and then capitalized by the private sector. We pay those bills. And how humane it is that if you have a disease and you don't have the money for the drugs that can cure that disease, you just ultimately die. Wow, what a society. Are we civilized or what? And the same apply with the food industrial complex. The seeds that are manufactured by now, the ADMs of the world and all these other companies. Now, if the pollen from your farm gets into the pollen of another farm, and those genetically modified seeds you start to produce because of pollen migration, you now owe ADM. You can't use your own seeds. You got to pay ADM, another ripoff of the taxpayer, another ripoff of the average American citizen. But none of this stuff is discussed in detail on mainstream media. You don't know this stuff. Why would you? Why would you have to know this stuff? Why would you? It's all behind the scene. And that's why we can say, okay, it is okay for Walmart to go into small towns and kill industries because they're more efficient. When they are not more efficient, they are more extractive, because to get that little Walmart into that little town gives tax abatements. That little town builds infrastructure. That little town, the taxpayer dollars from all of us go to pay for the underpaid Walmart employee. And then we call that efficiency? No. But again, we first have to understand how the system actually works. But nobody wants to teach us that, because if we understand how the system works, we will never allow the system as it is to exist. One of our goals, the goals of many of us doing this kind of work, is to really hope that we can penetrate penetrate the space of enough to understand how the system works, so that we can ensure it cannot persist, and we develop a truly equitable system where your worth is dictated by what you really are. And for those who says, well, this system works and all the skyscrapers we build and all the streets we build, and what system is more efficient? It doesn't quite exist yet, but we can create it because it is all man-made. The people who build those skyscrapers can't even enter them after they're built. The people who believe that we need this economic system in order to have innovation, the innovators don't make the money in this country. It's the people who decide, I am going to invest in that innovator, that makes the money. We have to understand that engineers don't ask for much. Scientists don't ask for much. It's the people who go to business school and figure out how they can live on the intellect of others that make the money in this country. Once we understand that, we will start demanding what is ours. What is ours? What we work for. All right, let's go to Johnny. Johnny, I'm going to try to keep everything to under a minute and change. Johnny, you're on. Well, you'll be on in a little bit. Okay, Johnny, you're on. Yes, sir, I can.
Yeah, I want to thank you for pointing out to our regular listeners all the things that they should remember and never forget, as well as pointing out these things that are maybe brand new to some listeners who are just coming of age and discovering KPFT. Let's not forget the Chicago School of Economics is not all it's cracked up to be. If you're a young person and you want to study economics because you've been stimulated by these conversations, remember, the new school in Manhattan is where you want to go study economics, not in Chicago, unfortunately. But this morning I had to apologize to Magic Jack when he answered my phone because I realized that I have been lately greeting him with good morning instead of a theoretical good morning because, as you know, everything is up for grabs. Everything's up for grabs. So, and I see my time is running out, so I forgot what I was going to say again. I need to get some fresh Post-it notes. That's what I think I need to do.
Well, go get your fresh Post-it notes, my brother. But I appreciate you, Johnny. You take care, my brother. All right. All right, Cheryl Edkins in the chat. Welcome aboard. Thank you for being here. I think I got everybody in there. Okay, come on in, Bruce.
Good morning, Egberto. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother. Talk to me.
I'll make it fast. First, it's a sales tax that always affects the poor more than the rich. Second, last year we had a local merchant dressed up in a Uncle Sam outfit, jumping up and down, saying Memorial Day was about buying mattresses. If you need one, buy one the day before, the day after. The sales always run, extra days. Third, we lost more people to COVID than the world wars and Vietnam. I'm going to make a proposal. No one will do it, but I'm going to say it anyway. We should have a medical Memorial Day for those that needlessly lost their lives due to medical malfeasance. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Bruce. And I actually love that idea. Just like the heroes that saved this country, I believe we should have that for what was done medically to all our people by one of the worst presidents in American history, if not the worst president. And by the way, Cheryl Edkins is from Framingham, Massachusetts. All right, come on in, Jimmy.
Hey, Egberto, I want to bring up again the advantages of Walmart. You seem to think that they make their profit by paying employees low wages. Well, I think they're probably paying their employees the same as H-E-B pays them, as Target pays them, and all these other stores. They're making their money primarily by taking less profit on their items. They sell thousands and thousands of items at less than other stores do. So that's why the customers go there, because they're saving money and they have more choices. And that's one great thing about America. We have a lot of competition in the stores. I love H-E-B also. They have lower prices than Kroger and Randall's, and they have a wide selection of good food items. They're bringing in new items all the time, and they don't just sit on their hands and let things happen. They're also letting people check themselves out without having to hire a person to check yourself out. I know I have a friend who will not use those self-check.
Jimmy, let me stop you for a second. Right? I think you're the reason for this actual segment, believe it or not. So thank you for giving me a chance to tell folks how it really is. Now, what you're saying there are the Walmart talking points, and that's what we get a lot of, the Walmart talking points. The reality is, for Walmarts to be built, they get a lot of tax abatements. They pay their employees less. These are statements of facts that I'm making right here. They pay their employees less. A lot of their employees are on welfare, which means a lot of the taxes, a lot of the pricing that you have for the products are on the backs of the taxpayer. If your profit margin is because of the amount of wages you pay. And if your profit margin is also based on getting tax abatements from the cities, etc., that means that is not a real savings. We are actually paying it at taxes. The same thing that we are having with the tariffs right now. Walmart can get away from some of the tariffs. The person who gets the exemption from that $800 amount, sir, is not. So what I'm trying to say is the reason the reason, like I said, after I heard you, right, because I know who you are and good person, good progressive, my immediate thing was, I've got to really go out there and let people know what the true items are. All I'm telling you right now, my dear brother, is those are Walmart talking points, but they're not real. They are not more efficient than these other things. They just get to work the system, Jimmy. And you and I have to sit down and talk about that over a cup of coffee, because my phones are full and I only get 6 minutes to handle all of them.
They're offering lower prices. People go and they get for their money.
But the lower prices are on the backs of the taxpayers, what I'm saying, Jimmy. Let's talk about that in person. I got to sit down and talk to your brother. Let's do it the next HPJC meeting. We'll talk, okay?
Oh, okay, but those employees don't have to work there. They can go to HEB and make the same amount of money.
Yeah, we'll talk later, Jimmy. We'll talk later. Let's go to Robin. Come on in, Robin. I only have about 90 seconds per person.
Hey, buenos dias. I just had two totally off topic, but one reason I really enjoy listening to your show is I like listening to your what I call lectures or ideas. And then I also really, really appreciate listening to so many different callers and your interactions with them. And so I had an idea that I'm sure plenty of people would be maybe having like 30-minute interviews with certain people, like who is the lady, the Uju from Nigeria?
Yeah, Uju. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then Donald, your MAGA, I think he's great. Ray and
Robin, I get the gist. I have to cut. I get the gist. I got to cut you. I got 6 calls. I got to do in 4 minutes. Thank you, sis. We'll talk. Keep calling. All right, let's go to Brian. Brian, you got 30 seconds now because of the time.
Yeah, the housing market was created by the U.S. government, guaranteeing loans for people with bad credit. And as far as tax abatement, why don't you drive up 249 North and look on the left? You'll see Compact Center. You can thank Kathleen Whitmire for stopping those tax cuts, because Houston would have been the equivalent of what's going on in the tech sector in Austin right now.
Thank you, Brian.
Said,
let's go to Moses. Let's go to Moses. Come on in, Moses. Moses, I only got 30 seconds for you.
Yeah, good morning. I will say quickly, congratulations. You have presented, from the heart of an old teacher, you have presented a master class on the economic structure of the United States, and are now clearing up for every listener to understand what it is we stand on, so we can move forward in truth. Thank you.
Thank you so kindly. Thank you so kindly, sister. Let's go to Bobby. Bobby, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I had heard exactly what you said it was like a news story that Walmart literally had like a chart showing their employees as they were being hired that, look, you'll make enough or you won't make enough, you'll be eligible. That was actually part of their hiring program to let them know that they could get on work there and get food stamps. And the disparity between the haves and have-nots has always been that internal turmoil that's collapsed all previous empires in the past. So, like, we need to figure out a new, distribution of wealth in the country. You're absolutely right.
You're absolutely right, Bobby. Thank you so kindly. Let's go to Mike. Come on in, Mike. 30 seconds.
Hey, I just love your talk about how we steal people's money with stocks. I learned how to do that, but I did learn at the community college level, just taking an economy class. I do realize that I had opportunities given to me that others don't, but we do all have our own culture and our way to survive by any forms. I'm referring to welfare and handing out, but it's for everyone. I don't know. I just love your show. There's always two sides to the story. I can go either way, but thanks, brother.
Thank you, my brother. You have a good day, Mike. All right, let's go to Patrick. Brother Patrick, come on in.
Hey, good morning. I was losing my mind listening to Jimmy. A Main Street store pays approximately 600 times the amount of taxes a big box store does per acre. We subsidize these. They operate under a dark store theory, which means the store is built or the architecture is designed in a way that nobody else can use those. That's why they end up being airsoft and laser tag places afterwards. They're intended to last 15 years. And the dark store theory says that the land is worthless and the store is worthless because nobody else can use it, so they don't pay taxes on it. That's my
There you go. Thank you very much. So thank you so kindly, Patrick. And we did it. We did it. Thank you, Patrick. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get through all those calls, but doing that 30-second things work and at the end of the show. Anyway, let me throw it to the studio before I do a quick closing.
Well, I actually wish that they would call in earlier so we could have more time with some of them. And I'm glad that some of them called at the very last minute so we don't have so much time with them.
Oh, God, you're terrible.
I am terrible. To Jimmy, why is it fair to the taxpayer to have to supplement a Walmart employee's income? Why is that fair to us? Sure, they offer the lowest prices, but they rip us off. And it's just another rip off from the companies. We're tired of being ripped off of this stuff. I mean, now they're repricing this stuff going, oh, well, the tariffs are coming, so we're going to have to reprice everything that was already here that you did not pay tariffs on. You're ripping us off again. So there you have it. And that's my rant for this morning. Jack, what you got, man?
Well, it's Florence Nightingale's birthday, so let's hear it for all the nurses out there working their tails off.
Yay.
Yes, nurses. I love nurses. I love doctors. I love people that are really giving us our value. Folks, first of all, I got to get out of here, but there's several other topics that I needed to cover. The plane, the Qatar plane is a distraction. Don't waste your time on the Qatar plane issue. It's a distraction from what's happening. Anyway, here's the deal. The rest of the program can be found at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. You can email me directly at kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. Love you all of you, from the depths of my heart. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an